Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome back. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I have much to cover here. Almost can't even introduce all of it. I'm just going to kind of bounce around, but per usual, the three major categories here: geopolitical, education, and medical related jab stuff, along with, of course, numerous other issues and how they all connect. So let's get right to it. I know that in the past I've talked about numerous false flags that have occurred, and of course the constant psychological operations that take place. And I've again linked numerous videos to how a lot of these, of course, can be proven. That if you push your emotions to the side, you can examine particular situations more objectively. Because again, the enemy's always preying on emotions. And all of us, of course, being emotional beings, and then the emotional part of the brain takes over, and then you stop being logical about things, and so on and so on. This, of course, is why the best detectives that exist, and I'm certainly not one of them, but there are many, they exist because they are not afraid to ask questions, and they can look at particular situations, and they can be remarkably objective about it, and they can enter even a violent situation and not become overly emotional, but actually observe everything almost as if they are literally watching a movie. They know that it's not real, or they know that what was real has already happened, so let's look at the evidence and let's examine things. And then again, you're more likely to arrive at logical conclusions as a result. I know that I've explained more specifically the January 6th Ashley Babbitt situation before in the past, and I've linked the video that clearly shows her not being dead, and how the people around her when she was not shot are actors, and how that entire thing was a giant stage and a scene, basically. Now, the question, of course, is why? Why did all of that take place? And I've provided numerous explanations, in my opinion, as to why that took place, but very succinctly, there was an excellent post that, believe it or not, was on greatawakening.win, which unfortunately is, again, turning more into a Reddit kind of site, which kind of stinks. But either way, every now and again, you're going to get some really objective posts over there. And there was one regarding Ashley Babbitt. Again, a person in their original post asked the question about Babbitt, and they basically said, hey, look, I don't think that she's dead. I think the whole thing was a false flag. The question is why. And then they said, so post your responses below as to why you think it happened the way that it happened and what really went down. And the highest rated vote post, I should say, basically said this, and I'm going to read it. They said, quote, I am going to say that the whole Ashley Babbitt thing was a hoax. No one from that room has been arrested or imprisoned. Some are identified as Antifa leftists. Everyone in the room was an actor. If you will recall, Trump delayed his speech for an hour, keeping the MAGA loyal there by the White House. Meanwhile, the FBI, CIA were on the timetable, and so executed their quote-unquote attack on Congress without the MAGA loyal. Their goal in taking out quote-unquote Ashley Babbitt was to cause the MAGA loyal to be so irate that they would go violent against the Capitol, a true insurrection. You will recall that they put a bunch of people in front of cameras stating that, quote, government murdered an innocent woman, unquote. The operation was premature. The MAGA loyal weren't there, just the paid Antifa Black Lives Matter radicals were there, trashing the Capitol. The MAGA loyal showed up 45 minutes after all the orchestrated crap and were peaceful. It was all a show intended to create mob chaos. Trump delayed his speech an hour, messed up the game plan, unquote. I agree with that. That's very well done. And I very specifically remember seeing again the footage of individuals coming out of the building, telling individuals that this woman had been shot and that she's dead and that there's blood everywhere and all this other stuff. I mean, again, it was done in an effort to try to get people from the outside of the Capitol into the inside to then again create more chaos. But what was interesting is people weren't buying it. By and large, they didn't buy it. They just weren't believing, again, what complete strangers were telling them in the middle of a chaotic scene. much of which, of course, was completely staged. In fact, the whole thing was staged. No one was really going to go inside of the building. But again, as I think about that, which I don't frequently, certainly not at all, but as I think about it, I can't help but think of all of these so-called conservative news outlets that continuously run with the Ashley Babbitt story. Now, is it possible that they, again, know that it was a psy-op, know that it was a false flag, and now they've just switched it into turning it into this, MAGA woman who served in the army gets murdered, and now we're going to use that script basically against them in the opposite direction? It's highly possible. All of that's highly possible. Again, it certainly pisses people off, but as you've heard me say, a lie is a lie is a lie. And I don't like lies. So even if they've turned a so-called deep state lie and a deep state setup, which Ashley Babbitt clearly was a part of that was why she was there along with all the people around her. She was there to stage a real violent takeover of some kind by faking her own death and then again having the people around her run outside and tell everybody that someone was murdered by Capitol Police and we need to go get them. I mean, all of that stuff was clearly done on purpose, but to flip it and turn it into, she was a hero and she was peacefully protesting and blah, 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 and we should support her and her mother and her husband and all the people around him. I don't buy that either. I mean, that might work on somebody who, of course, is looking at the situation at face value, but I just don't buy it. So it doesn't matter the psychological operation. I think it was an interesting tactic to turn it into a good psy-op to some extent, to fool a great deal of people and use it again by just flipping that entire scene against the enemy. But even so, Ashley Babbitt was a part of the problem. And all the people around her were a part of the problem. And as the author of that post clearly stated, no one else around her has been arrested, and yet they're all on film. At least to our knowledge, no one else has been arrested. And again, I linked that video in a previous episode, I think last week or the week before, so you can go and check it out. But again, it's beyond obvious that the whole thing was fake. I just liked that person's post, and I just wanted to read that to you because I thought it was a nice explanation. Not because, again, it agrees with what I've said in the past, but it's actually just a rather straightforward, logical explanation, in my opinion. Okay, moving on here. Of course, all the money for Ukraine, what a nightmare. And Israel, what a nightmare. And then, of course, apparently what was snuck into the bill having to do with a potential TikTok ban if they don't sell TikTok within a certain number of days. There was also this, which I came across. I thought it was kind of interesting. Again, kind of a neat explanation. This is from a Joel Kim Booster on X, and they said, quote, "Can't pay teachers, can't house the homeless, can't provide health care, can't invest in useful infrastructure of any kind, can't, but," and then they linked a post from the Spectator Index saying, breaking, U.S. House approves $60.8 billion in aid for Ukraine, $26.4 billion for Israel, and $8 billion for Taiwan. And then below that, and I don't know what particular site this was posted on. It looks like one of the .win sites. So it could be patriots.win, I'm not sure. But the individual said below it, they said, "It all seems orchestrated. The individuals who claim to represent our party don't appear to be acting in our best interests. Nothing about this situation feels genuine." I have to tell you, this is so complex. And it has so many moving parts that I don't think I can explain it. I really can't. I have no doubt that there is an operation taking place that is being used to catch individuals. Again, whether that's with money laundering or, again, illegally passing these bills, knowing that they're going to get some illegal kickback of some kind or whatever it may be. I'm certain that that's out there sort of in one basket. But there are numerous baskets regarding all of this. I think it's beyond evident to those of us who are certainly on the internet and have been for decades, looking up numerous amounts of information, that at this point, and you're talking to somebody or listening to somebody rather who's not on TikTok. I don't have a TikTok account. I don't do the TikTok thing. But it's beyond evident that if it is real, that the United States government is forcing the sale of a company from an outside Singaporean man who owns TikTok and runs it. I find that completely unconstitutional, to say the least. It seems highly illegal that a U.S. government could force the sale of a company that exists outside of the United States. But then again, everybody's a criminal and everybody's corrupt, so it makes sense from that standpoint, I think. But with that said, it's also beyond evident, even to the casual observer, that when you put the individuals who are on TikTok who are taking pictures of themselves and being vain and 1,000 other things, when you put that to the side and you don't pay attention to them, the other content that is on TikTok is waking people up. And this is a big problem for government. This is a huge problem for government because, again, who's going to buy TikTok then? What are they going to do with it? I mean, it's not a free speech platform. There are videos that get ratioed. There are videos that get deleted. There are accounts that get deleted. There's shadow banning that takes place. We know that. It's not a free speech platform, just like X is not a free speech platform. I mean, neither one of them are. However, you're going to find the truth on there. You're going to find critical thinking on there. You're going to find people on those platforms that are awake out of the matrix. And they live in the real world and they're sharing the real information with the real people. But government doesn't like that, which should tell everybody exactly who your enemy is. Now again, is that entire thing a script in order to wake up people and get them to understand that government is not your friend? It's possible. It's highly possible. Are the pawns being used? And by pawns, I mean the people in government, the legislators and the individuals passing these bills and approving all of this, and the Josh Hawleys of the world screaming at the top of their lungs, saying, TikTok is terrible and we need to get rid of it. And I move to get rid of it and I'll support it and I'll vote for the abolishment of TikTok and blah, blah, blah. I mean, is he being used because he's just a tool? It's possible. It's highly possible. Is he being lobbied to get rid of it because, he, like everybody else in the Senate and certainly in government, are owned by the Jewish lobby? It's possible. I find it highly unlikely, though, that individuals in Congress or anyone on Capitol Hill who's an elected official, quote unquote, would actually know what's really going on behind the scenes if something else is really going on. I don't think that they'd be aware. I don't think that they would be in the know, so to speak, or be told what the real scheme behind the scenes is. So, what's to be believed with all of this? I'm not sure. I really don't know. Like I said at the beginning, there's too many moving parts here. Is there really money going to Ukraine? I don't know. Is there really money going to Israel at this point? Or Taiwan? I really don't know. I have no idea. But the American people are being told that there's money going that way in the amount, of course, of hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's been this way since 2021. But again, if there's a continuity of government, and the Insurrection Act were signed and the military is in charge, then that would mean that all of these bills, like I've said in the past, are null and void. That none of them are actually real. That it is a show. That we are watching a show. So, is it again being used to stir up outrage among the American public? Possibly. What I hope isn't happening is that it's being used to stir up the American public to support a global government. That would be a bad thing. I don't think that would be good in the slightest, or certainly to support a candidate or multiple candidates that ultimately are interested in a global government. Sort of a let's all get along, we can all be the same, we can all operate under the same rules kind of thing. We clearly can't, and I don't think any logical human being would actually want that. But there's just too many moving parts here. So I really come from a philosophy of let's control what we can control, let's examine what we can examine. But also, and I would say this could be equally as important, this third part, which is let's not always believe what we're being shown. I mean, believing what we've been shown is what got us here in the first place. And how's that worked out for everybody? So I think we need to be as skeptical as humanly possible. Understand that, again, there are many moving parts on many different dimensions. And we don't have to understand everything, and that's fine. But there are many things that we can seek to understand. And again, regarding all of this legislation and all of this other stuff, again, if we are at war, which is what the Insurrection Act implies directly and states directly, then this is a wartime. And we are a war-torn country. And the moves that are being made right now, again, I find them highly suspicious. It's too odd. It's just too odd that hundreds of billions again would be going to foreign countries, and yet we have this crisis at the southern border, which is true, by the way. I mean, that's real. This is one of those things you can catch on video, and it's undeniable proof. You can go outside of your home, you can walk around whatever town or city you live in, and it is more violent and darker than it probably has been in the past, if you catch my drift. This is a real thing. Not to mention, you listen to local city council meetings, you can hear how crazy these people sound. They've lost the plot. So all of that's real. I have no doubt about that. No doubt that we are actually being invaded. But I also have no doubt that there has to be measures that are in place by the catch basin of the real military, not, like I've said in the past, the fake military that we see on TV, or some of these trannies who think that they're in charge of something, but a real operational military that exists underground, metaphorically, basically, sort of, again, like a very selected catch basin military of individuals who are sworn to secrecy and know exactly what's going on. I'm certain that that's highly, highly possible in this case. In fact, it would have to be. It would have to be. There's no way that you could logically operate as a military by going in front of Congress and then, of course, just telling people what's really going on. Let me give you a quick example. This is just one of those really odd things that I found. Again, I found it odd. You had Matt Gaetz this past week in a congressional hearing with some military leaders, a male and a female specifically, and they were talking about U.S. troops in Niger, in Africa, and how they were basically surrounded and trapped, and there were at least 1,000 U.S. soldiers there, and they weren't having supplies delivered to them, that they were running out of food and water, that in many cases they didn't have electricity and they didn't have the things that they needed, and Matt Gaetz was calling for them, of course, to be extracted from Niger. And then, apparently, the Russian government ends up extracting them after the meeting, allegedly. Again, why is it that individuals in our own military wouldn't be concerned about soldiers who are in a war-torn country where they've basically taken it back from the French, and French, whatever you'd want to call that, occupation, so to speak, and not know that their own soldiers are in danger there? Because they openly admitted in the hearing to Matt Gaetz that they were unaware of any real problems, and he goes, wait a minute, why is it that I know this and you don't? Well, that's a good question. Maybe they're out of the loop. Maybe they're not really in control. Or maybe it's just not real at all. And the entire thing is designed to make certain individuals look incompetent in the public eye. Now, again, was the hearing filled with people? No, of course not. I mean, these hearings in Congress, by and large, are dead empty. And I'm going to play some audio from one later on in the jab portion of the show here. That came from a Dr. Thorpe, and it's not the Dr. Thorpe that you might be thinking of. It's not the one who was in the Died Suddenly documentary. This is a different Dr. Thorpe who was in charge of the Science publication and Science magazine and the Science Journal and whatever else. and again, also not widely attended. Unfortunately, much of, again, what he was discussing wasn't even real. I mean, he too is perpetuating a lie, even while trying to be on the right side of history. So again, just geopolitically, again, so many moving parts. It's hard to keep track of everything. There was also a post that I put on Gab, and then it's kind of interesting because this kind of got verified through a couple of different avenues online that I'm very familiar with, and individuals that I'm very familiar with, specifically on Gab. But they claimed that this particular post was written by, in fact, it was written by, an individual who's on Telegram, and they go by Pepe Escobar. And again, this has to do with the so-called Israeli and Iranian conflict. But here's what Pepe Escobar said on X. They said the following, exclusive. They said the real story of the Israeli counter-response. Now, again, you can take this for what you want. I've just had some individuals online basically say that this individual, this so-called Pepe Escobar, does in fact have pretty good sources, and they're hanging their reputation on this post. So you can take it you can take it with a grain of salt at face value, or you can dismiss it completely. Either way, here's what they said. They said the real story of the Israeli counter-response from a very high-level intel source in Asia, not Russia, China. Although the strategic partnership, of course, exchanges at the highest level 24/7. Confirmed and reconfirmed. They said it will be great to know what Cy Hirsch hears from his Beltway sources. Here we go. They said, quote, Israel initially chose to respond with extreme force. An F-35 loaded with a nuclear bomb was sent east over Jordan. The mission? Cause a high-altitude detonation over Iran that would provide a surge in the high-capacity power lines, crippling Iran's electric grid, as well as disabling all electronic devices, an EMP attack. They said, however, as the Israeli F-35 was leaving Jordanian airspace, it was shot down by the Russian Air Force. Hence, the publicized version of the Israeli counter-response was such a travesty. In the end, all sides decided not to publicize the real news, to de-escalate what could well turn into World War III, unquote. Again, my only question is, and I've heard individuals, of course, say that nuclear weapons aren't even real. That too is its own scare tactic, and that's why the movie Oppenheimer came out recently, and a number of other things. It's all designed to perpetuate a lie of actual nuclear weapons which have never existed. Hydrogen bombs are real, but the business of nuclear bombs is likely not, if not downright impossible. Either way, the timing of all of it seems relatively interesting, and if they really did shoot down a plane, an F-35, that had a nuclear warhead on it, assuming that's real, why would the nuclear warhead not explode in midair or anywhere around where the explosion, of course, took place, in particular if it landed in the ground? Again, that's my only question with it. As naive as that might sound, it seems like that bomb would have to go someplace then if it were shot down, and it sounds like, again, it would have to explode on the ground if it were shot out of the sky. So, I don't know. Either way, I'm certain there are war games taking place. There have to be, and there's certainly psychological war games taking place all of the time. I'm not trying to perpetuate those by any stretch. I'm just trying to remind people that there's so much that we're not being told. And there's probably, of course, way more going on a constant basis than we can ever imagine. So, there you go. Okay. Moving on here, there, of course, was the guy who allegedly set himself on fire. Well, he did set himself on fire. But there are also individuals claiming this. Now, you talk about a false flag. This is an interesting one, too. There's videos out there claiming that the people who were around this guy were crisis actors. And there's videos out there claiming that the guy dumped himself with the stereotypical stuntman movie Hollywood stuff gel that you can dump on people so that they can set themselves on fire and remain alive. Now, this guy really caught on fire. I've seen the up-close footage of it, and I was going to put it in the war video, and I think I ended up deleting it. Which, by the way, I had a massive problem with with the last war video, but I figured out the issue, so hopefully that doesn't happen again. But either way, there was actual up-close footage of it. I mean, somebody was practically standing next to the guy when he lit himself on fire, and I have no doubt he's dead. And I have no doubt again that that what happened to him was clearly something that he did to himself. The question is who allowed it? Were there people around him or any kind of law enforcement handlers or anybody else around him allowing him to do that? I think that's a logical question, and I think that maybe again is that being done to draw attention to future violence in the upcoming months. I'm not sure, but there was also this, of course, which was a bit strange. This individual had a Substack page, and their Substack was titled theponzipapers.substack.com. Again, assuming that it is this individual. Again, who's to know if it's really their page or somebody else's? I mean, none of this can really be believed. But either way, the author of this particular post, which came out on April 19th, was from an M. Crosby. And here's what they said. They said, "My name is Max Azzarello, and I'm an investigative researcher who has set himself on fire outside of the Trump trial in Manhattan." Now, of course, he didn't write this. I don't know who wrote this, but the timing, of course, was the exact same day. So again, was it kind of a kill switch kind of thing? It had to have been in order to draw eyes on this. Again, whether for distraction or education purposes or whatever, but I wanted to read a piece of this because this individual is all over the place as you would expect, but there's some truth in some of these lies, believe it or not. They went on and they said, "The extreme act of protest is to draw attention to an urgent and important discovery. We are victims of a totalitarian con, and our own government, along with many of their allies, is about to hit us with an apocalyptic fascist world coup." Now, there's some truth in that. You take out the word fascist, it's even more true. So he doesn't understand the definition of the word fascist, but either way, that's fine. But a world coup, yeah, we've been under one for quite some time. I mean, I would have walked up to them and lowered their hand, with the lighter in their hand and said, "Hang on, we know." Anyway, they went on here and they said, "These claims sound like a fantastical conspiracy theory, but they are not. They are proof of conspiracy." Yeah, we know that. "If you investigate this mountain of research, you will prove them too. You will prove them too," it says. Okay. It says, "If you learn a great deal about Ponzi schemes, you will discover that our life is a lie. If you follow this story in the links below, you will discover the rotten truth of post-truth America, quote unquote. You will learn the scariest and stupidest story in world history, and you will realize that we were all in a deep state of emergency that requires your action." He hasn't said anything that's wrong yet. It's clear, again, clearly a confused individual, but what they're stating here is right. And by confusion, I mean setting yourself on fire. And I have some audio of this person that I'm going to play here in just a second, so hang on. But they go on here and they said, "To my friends and family, witnesses and first responders, I deeply apologize for inflicting this pain upon you. But I assure you that it is a drop in the bucket compared to what our government intends to inflict. Because these words are true, this is an act of revolution." No, you're just setting your ass on fire, but whatever. They go on and they said, last March, a billionaire named Peter Thiel started a bank run on Silicon Valley Bank. I knew enough about Thiel that I found this incredibly suspicious. My hunch was that this was intentional, though I couldn't fathom why. I began investigating online and quickly found cryptocurrency's fingerprints all over it. The bank run occurred just days after Silvergate Bank, which catered almost exclusively to crypto companies, collapsed. Meanwhile, several crypto cheerleaders were all over financial media warning of a regional banking crisis and nobody in media was addressing the clear crypto connections. I dug deep into the financials of Thiel's venture capital firm, Founders Fund, and eventually uncovered the following, all proven many times over. And they have a series of bullet points here. I'm going to read these 6 bullet points, and then I'm going to play the audio. So here's the first one. It says, cryptocurrency is our first planetary multi-trillion-dollar Ponzi scheme. It was expressly created for the purpose by a laundry list of rich and powerful people out of Stanford, Silicon Valley, and Harvard, Facebook. The second bullet point says that the March 2023 bank failures were all intentional. The banks were used to move out stolen Ponzi money. This signals that they're no longer dumping cash in to keep the cryptocurrency Ponzi afloat, and that it will soon go insolvent, as all Ponzis must. The third bullet point, when the Ponzi scheme goes insolvent, it will take down half the stock market with it. The perpetrators used these major companies to pipe into the blockchain so they could funnel money out of the crypto exchanges. This includes Google, Tesla, Apple, PayPal, Facebook, Disney, Walmart, Target, InBev, Zoom, and countless others. The next bullet point says, it is a Ponzi scheme so large that it created global inflation, which is why the price of Bitcoin has been a remarkable leading indicator for inflation rates. Victims who bought crypto don't realize their money has already been stolen, so the money gets double counted by the victims and the criminals who stole it. The next bullet point says, as it turns out, our elites are awash in Ponzi schemes. Stanford's StartX.com investment fund and Jeffrey Epstein's program for evolutionary dynamics he ran at Harvard are both fake science Ponzi factories, and these schools have invested billions in. They are filled with fraudulent companies that use smoke and mirrors to promise miraculous new technology but always collapse, while the perpetrators only get richer. And then the final bullet point, funneling trillions of dollars in stolen cash through the stock market created the largest stock market anomaly in history. The stock chart signature of a Ponzi scheme is a massive increase while they stack up cash, and then a massive fall as they funnel out the stolen cash. This chart shape appeared in all the companies listed above. In order to explain the massive anomaly, our criminal government unleashed COVID on the world and told us these were the stay-at-home stocks, quote unquote. Again, they go on. It's a lengthy post. But here's one last paragraph. They said Ponzi schemes are vicious beasts, and cryptocurrency is history's largest Ponzi scheme by orders of magnitude. It could be best described as an economic doomsday device intentionally made to shatter the world economy. Again, it's a far larger post, but you can check it out at theponzipapers.substack.com. You know, as an outsider looking in, I don't deny what he's saying. I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. He's a financial guy. He's a business guy. Pena is his name, I think. Yeah, you know, the older guy who curses on stage all the time. I've played his videos in the war videos. There's a very famous clip of him instantly saying, again on stage to a room full of people, don't invest in Bitcoin because if you did, or any cryptocurrency, because if you did, if you knew who ran it, you would get out in an instant. And then the person asking him the question said, so it would collapse. And he goes, not in a day, in a millisecond. In an absolute millisecond, it would evaporate. So Dan Pena is his name. My apologies. Either way, yeah, I have no reason to doubt that. But let's hear what this guy has to say in his own in his own pre-burnt face. Anyway, yeah. So here's some audio from him in 3, 2, 1.
Hey, want to learn the biggest secret in the world? In March 2023, sketchy billionaire Peter Thiel started a bank run. I did 1,500 hours of research, and I learned all their rotten secrets. Big one is the cryptocurrency. It's history's first planetary, multi-trillion-dollar Ponzi scheme. That's an economic doomsday play. When that Ponzi goes insolvent, as all Ponzis must, we'll get the worst economic collapse in world history. And every powerful person you can think of is in on it. Want to know why everything gets worse and more expensive? That's because we live in a secret kleptocracy. That's when the government gets taken over by con artists whose only job is to steal from the public. I hope you know this is wonderful news. Now that the public knows about the secret kleptocracy, they get to abolish their criminal government. Follow for more. Or this booklet, and you will bend history.
Start a fucking revolution. Start a fucking revolution. Start a fucking revolution. You've got nothing to lose.
Except for all the skin off your body. I mean, there's that. You've got that to lose. Again, the setting yourself on fire thing, if it was really him, and that's really what of course transpired there, and we're all, of course, talking about the same individual. It's a bad way of going about it. I mean, just get yourself a Substack page and, get on social media and speak about things as much as you possibly can publicly. I mean, there's other ways of doing it. There's other ways of drawing attention to particular issues and the collapse of human society as we know it instead of setting yourself on fire. But point made. And again, the flyer he holds up in the video is apparently one of many copies of the flyers that he threw out on the ground before he set himself on fire. Too bad, those pamphlets didn't make their way into people's hands. But either way, I find it hard to doubt what this individual said. And again, focus on what the media is showing you. A protester set himself on fire outside of Trump's trial, but it had nothing to do with Trump's trial. Anyway, on to the weather. You see what I mean? I mean, they don't even dive into anything that this guy allegedly was writing about. And there's a lot of truth in what he's saying. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, even Josiah Richwine and I were going, we're communicating back and forth over text message about it a little bit. And then I was starting to see some more BitChute videos about it. And then again, I read the guy's Substack. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth, again, in what he was stating. And, it's not the way to get attention. Because, again, the media controls practically everything. I mean, they control the narrative, and that's the way that it is. And unfortunately, what he was writing about wasn't getting the kind of attention I suppose that he wanted, even though on this Substack page and on this particular article, there were over 300 comments. But now you can't view the comments and you can't even make any comments. So the article's been making the rounds, but yeah, it makes sense. Why not? Doesn't everybody out there feel like they've been robbed? I mean, certainly seems to be the case. He had an interesting way of putting it, and the people who were involved and how it is a Ponzi scheme, it makes complete sense, in particular when you tie in what Congress is allegedly doing, again, assuming that that's even real. So, there you go. Okay. Here's one more scheme, however, and this kind of leans our way into education news here. This was thrown to me by a listener of the show, and thank you for sending it my way. It was a very interesting conversation, and you talk about a flippin' rabbit hole. Holy mackerel. The Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee, where the alleged fake shooting took place. Again, I don't think it happened. This individual was probably set up, and this particular conversation, which I will link in the description below if you're interested in watching it. Again, it's about 2.5 hours long. So I fully understand if people aren't going to, but I'll do my best to summarize it kind of as quickly as I can. This is on the Rumble channel JSlay USA. And this guy by the name of, I believe, Jay Sladen or Jason Sladen, whatever his first name is, he has a conversation with a guy by the name of Austin Davis. Austin Davis attended that church, He was a deacon. I don't know, I can't recall if it was in that church or somewhere else, but law enforcement in that town was coming after him personally many years before this fake shooting. Because, again, he was hearing about and uncovering child abuse within that particular church at the hands of the people who were running the place. Now, again, was this Audrey Hale woman, girl, abused in this school? I don't know. It's quite possible. It's quite possible that they knew of other abuses that were taking place, but it makes the manifesto itself sound even more fake. Because nowhere in that fake manifesto, which I believe was clearly written by federal agents or local law enforcement, who are corrupt as all get out, and you would certainly understand it listening to this Austin Davis guy talk about this, but nowhere in that 2 or 3 page manifesto did they say anything about going after child abusers or I was abused and that's why I'm doing this and so on and so forth. With that aside, even toward the end of the conversation, they basically have 2 conversations. One is face-to-face where you don't see his face, but he's in the room. And then the second conversation is he calls the host's phone. And then they have a conversation, and the host reads questions to this Austin Davis guy, asking him about the actual day itself. If you recall in that day, again, if it was really that day and it wasn't pre-recorded in some form or fashion, there were children playing on a playground on the school property. So if this Audrey Hale person really just wanted a body count, why didn't they just go out to the playground and mow down all these children who were swinging on the swing sets? And you can actually see it on the surveillance footage as this Audrey Hale person is driving around in their Honda Fit. You can even, if I'm not mistaken, see them in the background as they're shooting through the door. I could have that wrong, but either way, it begs that question. And then the host asked the question, although reluctantly, because they said, well, I don't know what really happened there, and I don't want to say this out of disrespect for the families and blah, blah, blah. But they said, what if this actually didn't even happen? What if this was all just a setup to basically take attention away from the fact that there's been rampant child abuse, if not trafficking, taking place at the hands of the individuals that run that church? And the Austin Davis guy essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically goes, I wouldn't doubt that. He says, I wouldn't doubt that at all. He says, I don't have any proof one way or another, and I don't trust law enforcement, and I have no reason to trust law enforcement. They're all bullies in that area where they live. They're all corrupt. He says it would make sense that they would stage something like that just to, again, try to draw attention away from what's actually gone on there and what they haven't really investigated. Because the Austin Davis guy said that the people who worked in that church knew what was going on years past. So again, you talk about a rabbit hole, ladies and gentlemen. The Nashville fake school shooting thing is one that is deep. It is deep. And it goes way past it just being a fake shooting. It begs the question again, why? And that's what this Austin Davis guy, I think he's an interesting piece of the puzzle. And he certainly seems to fill a particular gap. So I'll link it in the description below if you're interested in listening to the whole thing. But this story that this guy has about the way that he's been treated and the people that he knows and a number of other things, again, again, you just talk about a dirty, dirty part of town. I mean, in that whole area, that whole Nashville area, it's just gross. Either way, there you go. Okay. So again, thank you for sending that my way. It was very, very interesting. And again, it's proof that what the media shows you at face value is not even a snowflake on the tip of the iceberg. It's way bigger than that. So moving on here with other education stuff, and I've got a few things to mention here, including some audio off of the top. This fits right in with all of the vigilance stuff that I've been talking about, and how when government takes your rights away to carry a gun, or who knows, maybe you can carry a gun, maybe you can't in this particular situation, but this involves more specifically a female college student by the name of Regina Waldrop. And she was a University of Illinois Chicago student and still is. And she fought off a armed robber and basically was able to take the magazine out of the gun of the robber before anything was stolen off of her person and before she was, of course, potentially shot. So I'm going to play the audio from this. Again, this has been making the rounds. Give this one a listen real quick here in 3, 2, 1.
5600 block of South University. Maddie says a confrontation happened and the suspect demanded her phone before flashing the gun. The pair got into a tussle.
I was grabbing for maybe my phone, maybe the gun. It's really like a blackout moment for me. And I realized that I was able to grab the magazine out of the gun.
The loaded magazine, now in police custody, Maddie says, and she hopes it will help solve the crime. Just minutes after that ordeal sent people in the area scrambling to safety. Another armed robbery involving 2 suspects with handguns reported in the 1300 block of East 56th Street. That crime under investigation by the Chicago Police Department.
I want to feel safer on this campus. That's the bottom line.
I think we can always ask for more from our campus and our city.
Maddie says she hopes fellow students and staff are vigilant and keep their guard up. When all said and done, she says her reaction was a knee-jerk one, and she's thankful to be okay.
I couldn't necessarily really register the threat ahead of me. So definitely wouldn't advocate for fighting back. Losing a life over a phone is definitely not worth it.
Now, there's a couple of things here. First of all, a little inconsistency with their name. In the report, they refer to them as Maddie, but then in the actual article, they refer to them as Regina. But then again, in another audio, they call them Madeline. So their name is Madeline, from what I can tell. Either way, there were apparently at least 2 other robberies at gunpoint the exact same day. And in the video, in the surveillance video, as she's being attacked by this guy, there's another guy who's equally as tall and equally as big as the robber himself. And he's just sitting on his ass, minding his own business, while this girl is being assaulted. I mean, what is happening here? Clearly a soy boy. And you heard his voice. I think he may have been the same guy who was just like, we need safer campuses. We need something to happen. How about you get off your ass and you go help that woman? How about you, run into that guy, knock him over, curb stomp him, do something. I mean, anything. But good Lord. He's just sitting there watching her, watching her fight off this guy, and the magazine apparently just fell out of the gun, or she ripped it out of the gun or something. I don't know. Either way, she dodged one. Literally dodged a bullet, so to speak. But man, again, we need the college and university to do more. It's called constitutional rights. Everybody's supposed to have the constitutional right to carry a gun, but Illinois is one of those states where it's very difficult. Lots of hoops to jump through, more so than other places. Hell, they might even not have concealed carry for all I know. Again, I'm not a gun law expert, but either way, carry a knife, carry anything, as I've said a million times. Pepper spray, handcuffs, hell, handcuff somebody to something. I have a set of handcuffs. They're nice. I mean, they're good handcuffs. They attach to your belt. You can walk around with them if you want. And, if you find yourself in a situation where you just want to handcuff somebody to a pole, then, do it. Hell, go for it. Not for fun, of course. I mean, you get what I'm saying. Like in a, in a violent situation where you don't want the person to get away. I remember seeing that constantly in old cartoons and old movies back in the day, where the handcuffs would come out sort of secretly and oops, you're handcuffed. And oh, look, you're handcuffed to a pole. Now you can't go anywhere. Then the police get called and the person gets arrested and you uncuff them and that's that. So yeah, I don't know. Be more vigilant. Carry more things on your person. And honest to God, get off your ass and help somebody when they're being attacked. This kind of behavior is so disgusting. I mean, the guy just kind of sits there the entire time, like I said, and then he runs away. he actually runs away first. He runs away, and then she's standing there, still confronting him and yelling at him and whatever else, and then she runs away, and then the victimizer runs in the opposite direction. I mean, the guy sitting on his ass has the energy to run in the opposite direction, but he doesn't have the energy to run toward the problem to solve the problem. This is the issue. I mean, you talk about our society in a nutshell. Holy God. Okay. Anyway, moving on. There was that. There was also this. A little more curriculum related, so to speak. This was from PJ Media, whether to be believed or not. It's titled, Pinch Me, I'm Dreaming, Florida to Communism-Proof School Children. Now, I've brought this up before, months and months and months ago, and this has to do, of course, with a bill that apparently passed and was signed by DeSantis that basically says that Florida schools have to teach what communism is. That somewhere along the line in their education, they have to receive communist training of some kind, not to become a communist, hopefully, but the atrocities of communism. As I've said in the past, I wonder if they're going to teach the students who created communism. Because literally, as I'm reading this particular excerpt from this PJ Media article, there is an advertisement for a free flag pin with the Israeli flag and the American flag next to it, with them crossing each other. Disgusting. Either way, here's what it says. It says, the Tampa Bay Times covered the announcement of the historic and badly needed correction to the education system. It says, quote, Florida public schools will be required to teach students from kindergarten through 12th grade about the history of communism under a bill signed into law by Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday. The lessons will be required to be, quote, age appropriate and developmentally appropriate for each grade, and will be developed by the Florida Department of Education. Well, therein lies your problem then. I don't think they're going to point the finger at the old Jewish construction of communism, or perpetuation of it, certainly. It continues here, and it says, among the required instruction, which would begin in the 26-27 school year, why are we waiting so long? Lessons on the history of communism in the United States, the increasing threat of communism in the United States, and the atrocities committed in foreign countries under the guidance of communism, unquote. Ladies and gentlemen, the irony is so thick, you have to cut it with a chainsaw. They arrest John Minadeo in Palm Beach County, I believe. I think it was Palm Beach County or Broward County, whatever, one of the two, if not another county. They arrested him in Florida for littering, quote unquote, as he's passing out flyers talking about Jewish supremacy and communism. Again, the irony is so thick you need a chainsaw. And then they signed this into law, basically again stating that communism has to be taught in all grade levels from K through 12 that are quote-unquote grade appropriate and developed by the actual Florida Department of Education themselves. So it can't be trusted. It looks nice at face value. And oh, by the way, don't forget that Ron DeSantis signed into law the anti-Semitism thing in the state of Florida that basically says that you can't point the finger at the Jew, so to speak. So which is it then? Because it can't, I mean, this hypocrisy right here can't stand. You can't teach communism without teaching who created it, where it came from, where it spread, what books it exists in. Not to mention, if you really want to teach communism specifically to juniors and seniors in high school, just show them Europa: The Last Battle. Just watch that documentary. All 12 plus hours of it. Yes, it'll take at least 3 weeks of instruction, but do it. It'll be the best 3 weeks of instruction they'll ever receive. Hell, make it a at-home thing for them to watch, a project. All of you go home and watch Europa: The Last Battle over the course of this weekend. Yes, it's 6 hours each day, but watch the entire thing. And then I want a full report. Of course, good luck, because it'll probably be written by AI. But either way, that's really all you'd have to do, is just show Europa: The Last Battle among endless other things. You'd have to go back even further than that, of course. Back into the 1800s, further back than that. It's just, I mean, there's no way. There's no way that K-12 school teachers and there's just no way that they're ever going to be able to teach communism because they know nothing about it. Hell, most of them are communists themselves. What kind of instruction is really going to exist? Are you going to expect, again, K-12 teachers in the state of Florida to re-educate themselves on a subject they know nothing about? They've actually been working with and for this entire time? I don't think so. I don't expect this is going to go too well, and it's certainly not going to be objective. I'll just kind of leave it at that. But we'll keep an eye on it one way or another. Okay. Speaking of communism, might as well stay on this trend. This right here, I think, is a major point that has to be made. And this, again, is an unfortunate reality that many in the education business have no idea. They have no idea that they are tools. They have no idea that they're being used. It doesn't matter the school. It doesn't matter if it's at the K-12 level or, again, right through college, of course, certainly at the K-12 level specifically. But what they don't understand is that they are actual employees of the World Economic Forum. It is the World Economic Forum, which is communism. Again, the irony is thick here. That they are the ones putting forth the policy, the indoctrination, the publications, and all of the technology and the artificial intelligence. And we all have to do the same thing at the same time. And we all have to make this the expectation and the goal and the standard, so to speak. They are the ones pushing all of this. And yes, they are communists, and they are globalists and totalitarians. That's what they are. If you bounce over to the World Economic Forum's website, take a look at their articles, and then take a look around you in society, and you will see a correlation. Again, these dots are on top of each other. In their education section last week on the 17th of April, they had an article titled, Why We Need Global Minimum Quality Standards in EdTech. It says, and these are 3 bullet points, it says, the lack of universal monitoring standards for EdTech quality and impact hinders progress toward education for all. That's all code language for every kid needs to be tracked all of the time with a device in their hand. The second bullet point says, ensuring that we meet the UN's Sustainable Development Goal 4 by 2030 requires clear minimum quality standards for EdTech. Again, the UN and the World Economic Forum are the employers of American education and worldwide education employees. They are the human resources development department, so to speak. They pull the strings on the whole thing. And the last bullet point says policymakers need to move toward a multi-dimensional impact measurement and management across the EdTech sector. This is dangerous. And they also, of course, advocate for artificial intelligence with regularity in their articles. Again, you can bounce over there in their education section and check it out for yourself. It's legit. They're telling you what they're going to do, and they're telling you what people should be doing. And, of course, what they're always advocating for. And it's the useless eaters and the sheep that are just going to go along with it. But, again, these people want to rule over the ashes. And we have to walk away and let them do so. So, again, having these technology devices in everybody's hands, why is it any different than being in a homeschooling environment and doing that on their own? Again, in the last episode, Harry Wong was big, as you might expect, Dr. Harry Wong, on teaching children to teach themselves. You, of course, have heard me say that in my own way, that if a child can read and write, they can teach themselves. What the World Economic Forum is doing is, without even knowing it, is they're actually advocating for individuality. They're actually advocating for at-home learning and not needing the school system anymore. But they're trying to control as many people who are still inside the school system as humanly possible. And ladies and gentlemen, they have a death grip on them. And the people working in these environments have no idea. They don't have a clue. So again, if it were me personally, I would encourage people to think about it from that angle. That when you see an American K-12 school or even university employee at this stage of the game, understand that their real employer is the World Economic Forum and the UN and the WHO. That those are the communist organizations that are really their employer. Yes, they receive money from the state, and yes, they, are hired by some whack job leftist at a local school district or in a local school building, and that's the window dressing that everybody is shown. But behind the window, inside the actual store and in the back room, you're going to always find the UN and the World Economic Forum. Those are the employers of American employees. So, yeah. It's unfortunate, but it is a reality. Okay. Let's lighten the mood here. Although, in the same vein as all of the rest of this insanity, I'm sure you heard of the Utah students who staged the walkout to protest the furry takeover of the Utah school. That was hilarious. And I'll tell you what I found funny about it. What I found funny was the fact that students had the energy to protest these children and their other classmates who are walking around pretending to be animals when clearly they are not. Four-legged animals anyway, with leashes around their necks and apparently spraying Febreze in everybody's faces and biting them and pretending to chase them and play fetch in the hallway and poop in litter boxes and all that other stuff. And that, of course, the administration is allowing this all to take place, which they clearly are. Because, again, in order for something like that to even happen, you have to have an administration and a superintendent in place that allow it to happen. So that should show you, again, the bigger picture. But what I found funny about it was the energy that was being expended by the students themselves who are middle school aged. They looked middle school aged anyway. And the parents who were even showed up to protest all of this. Yes, that's right. Parents even showed up to protest this. So why don't you just pull your children out of the environment and get on the internet and take all of that energy that you're using to make a sign or shout at a school building or run out of a school building or whatever, and redirect your energy into looking online at homeschooling accredited programs that exist, and then bankrupt the school overnight by not going anymore? Why is that so difficult? Why is it so hard for people to do that? We know the answer, and the answer, of course, is brainwashing. This is proof as to how strong the brainwashing is with a great deal of society. It's so strict, and it has such a grip on them, that they are willing to continuously try to change an insane environment to cater to their own needs, and yet they don't even know what their own needs are. Because if they knew, they wouldn't even be going to these environments. But this was from Zero Hedge, just very quickly. Again, Utah students stage walkout to protest barking and biting furries in the classroom. I'm going to skip down a little ways here. It says, for those outside of what is now referred to as Gen Alpha, the generation born from 2010 onward, most people grew up with restrictions in school, including dress codes. While some institutions might have been more oppressive than others, overall there was a balance between, quote, expressing one's individualism, unquote, and keeping that expression from disrupting one's education. Well, it's not education they're receiving. That's the trick. Either way, they go on to, of course, say that they should be catering rather to academia and not people's narcissism. Well, yeah, it's a mental disorder. So let me play some audio here to kind of summarize this. Again, this is from ABC News, Channel 4, News Nation. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
We begin in Payson, where a group of about 75 protesters showed up to Nebo Middle School today. They say it's an issue over students who call themselves furries. But how much of that discontent is fueled by rumor? Our Sarah Murphy asked that question. She's here with what she found out. Sarah, what's this all about?
All right, Brian. Well, the term furry, it refers to someone interested in animals with human qualities. Now, they dress up like this as a cartoon version of an animal. Now, we've learned there have been reports at Nebo Middle School that students are getting mistreated over this topic. The
there was some kids dressed up as animals, and I heard that another kid got bit by one of them.
There's a lot of speculation surrounding the protest that happened at Nebo Middle School Wednesday morning. Nearly 75 students and parents showed up facing the school, saying they're unhappy with how administration is handling reports of harassment.
Okay.
You guys cannot record me without my permission! This is video a Nebo Middle School student took last week. Parents say there's an issue between some students and others who call themselves furries, or people who enjoy dressing up as cartoonish animals.
Back when I went to school, you couldn't dress that way, you couldn't do certain things, and I think it kind of needs to go back a little bit. Like, I know kids need their own personalities, but it's ridiculous when kids are dressing like animals and licking and biting people. I just don't think that's okay.
But the Nebo School District tells us it's not that extreme. Seth Sorensen says no one was scratching or biting anyone, and that there are a lot of untrue rumors going around.
It actually is not something that's been occurring. In fact, a lot of the information that's been put out there is completely incorrect and inaccurate, and so we're still trying to get on top of that.
Thank you.
This is Strudel, a member of the furry fandom. Though they've been a furry for over a decade, they have their own opinions.
It's crazy that it's escalated to this point where these kids are being so distracting to their peers that their peers want to stage a walkout, or to have, the next generation kind of muddy our name and not represent it very well. It is kind of disappointing.
Strudel believes there should be some limits.
Continue doing things you like, continue dressing up, continue making art, but maybe let's keep it outside of school hours.
As for the school, Sorensen says they have one main goal.
We want every student to feel safe when they come to school, and we want students to get along. In fact, we want adults to get along.
Okay, so the district says they've worked with some students whose dress and appearance they say might be disruptive to the school environment. They say they do invite parents to talk with administration to learn more about how they're handling this situation. Brian, back to you.
Okay. I like how at the beginning of that, the media person was like, or is this just rumor? Or is this really what's going on? Are all these students lying about it? How could you lie about something like that? And then, of course, interview an actual woman dressed up as a mascot dog. I'm not kidding. This is the funniest part of the whole thing. The funniest part is that the woman is trying to, the woman reporter, investigator, quote unquote, is trying to look serious as she's standing there interviewing a woman dressed as a mascot. Honest to God, what is wrong with people? It's mental illness. It's mental illness. Now, the mentally ill mascot female had a point. Keep it out of school. That's good. That's a good thing. Again, there are more subtle aspects of this whole furry thing that people are more likely to see. For example, again, students walking around acting like dogs. In one of the videos that I've watched, students were gathering around this guy outside of the school who was recording their audio, talking to them about what was going on inside of the school. One of the female students said that the students were walking around with what looked like butt plug tails. So there, again, it's basically a tail that comes out of a butt plug, or something that attaches again to the back of their belt, and again looks like a tail. And they'll wear ears to make it look like they have animal ears or something. And then they'll of course make the sounds and bark and play fetch in the hallway with a ball. I mean, they do this kind of stuff, and that's legit. That's, of course, because they're crazy people. But with that aside, there's an aspect of the furry thing which isn't being discussed, which is the sexual perverse nature of all of it. I mean, it's a fetish. It's a sexual fetish, and these kids are being used from the construction of a sexual fetish, and they don't even know that. I mean, they're not even aware of how they're being used. And the school allowing it either doesn't know how it's really, the origins of a lot of it, or at the very same time, they're going along with it knowing full well the actual origins of it from a sexual nature. So again, that's the part of this that, again, is not being discussed. And I would put it in the same category as when everybody was bringing up Dylan Mulvaney. Remember this guy who's pretending to be a teenage girl and, with the Bud Light cans and all that other stuff? The part of that people were missing was the fact that it was important to pay attention to, because you're talking about an individual who's pretending to be a minor, to entice individuals who are minors when in fact they are not a minor. Therefore, they are either a pedophile or pretending to be one. That's the real problem. Same thing with this furry thing. It's the undercoating and the sick underbelly foundational aspect of it being of a sexual fetish nature that people are missing here. So, again, this is part of it that, again, I don't know what else to say. Do you need another reason to leave? Honest as shit. Why people even keep sending their children to these places is beyond me. One story after another, and they're all bad. Not a single one of them has anything to do with real truth being told out of these environments. None of it has to do with them becoming stronger people, more literate, more competent. It's the exact opposite in every single school in society. Let me give you another example. Honest to God, this one is equally as horrific, but shouldn't shock anybody because this is one of the things I've brought up numerous times before. This comes out of New Jersey. And this was a female New Jersey school teacher by the name of Jenna Shabika. She allegedly molested a 13-year-old who was a student in the school on camera in the hallway, and then was told to go back into the classroom of the student was to go back into the classroom of the very person who did it to her. I'm reading this particular Twitter post from Wake Up, New Jersey. They said the teacher then proceeded to harass the girl after the molestation happened. She wasn't even fired for this. She resigned. What an epic failure by the school. It says, worse yet, the school's attorney blames the parents for it. Why? To save face for the school, ? You made matters worse, and looks like you're protecting the teacher. Removal of this attorney was brought up and needs to happen immediately. And then, of course, they have video here of the two parents themselves showing up to the board meeting where the mom is giving them hell and the dad's kind of standing by with his hands in his pockets looking like a soy boy. And then at the exact same time, who knows if they actually sent the kid, their own kid back to the actual board or, back to the actual school itself. I mean, they probably did. But they're giving the board hell and the board doesn't even care. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I just don't know how many more examples have to be brought up before people understand that these environments don't care about children. Again, their tagline is, the safety and security of America's kids are our number one concern. Every single time that they say that, the exact opposite is happening. It's just like when I read a mission statement or a vision statement from a school district or a university. Our mission is this and our vision is this. But don't pay attention to the fact that there are furries running around the school biting each other and that our teachers are sexually molesting children. No, don't pay attention to that. Just pay attention to the mission and vision statement on our website because, that's what we really stand for. Let me play this audio of the parents giving the board hell. Again, it almost goes without saying. This is 7 minutes long, so bear with it. But the only way we win against the education system, which is a brainwashing, torture, MK Ultra system, is by walking away. It's the only way. You can serve them with all the papers you want. You can give all the speeches you want at school board meetings. Making them bankrupt overnight by walking away is the only way. It's the only way. And anyone, and I mean this, anybody on social media saying otherwise is a gatekeeper, and they're profiting off of it. Like the Chris Rufos of the world, of course, and the libs of TikTok, while influential and hopefully leading people in a direction of leaving these systems. If they aren't actually leaving, and if those so-called influencers, quote unquote, aren't providing the resources to leave, as like I do on my website, for example, then they're missing the mark. They're missing the mark. So let me play this audio again from this board meeting. This happened recently, last week, specifically on the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
I'm sorry, Mary, you just have to face the mic. I'm sorry.
Wendy and South Dakota. The events happened on March 13th, down the hallway. Back to class after it happened. They called me 3:30. What happened for 3 hours? Lily was in the classroom being tormented some more by Jenna Shabika. Tormented about her body, her shape, her size, her growth over time. A teacher witnessed the event. Thank God for that teacher. She's my angel. She witnessed it. Thank God for her. I can't use her name just yet. As you stated, it took me a week to go to the police. I spoke to them that day with Department of Children's Services, with detectives in my house. So a week. His letter says, I have the letter. He closed it and said the concern about me and Sal was it took a week to go to the police. I was too busy entertaining your teacher in my driveway, happily describing how she touched my daughter in ways no one should touch my daughter. And I have witnesses. And she was on the phone with the principal who had just spoken with Mr. Malone. How about that? Then I have 60 emails, 60 text messages. Save my job. I'm going to Dr. Malone. Say it was a joke. Called my daughter. And has been texting my daughter for over a year. Sexualized content. That's why Lily wrote that. This man, look at him. He blames me.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, you just have to face this way when you address.
He blames me and him. I've got the letter. Don't believe anything I say. Watch the video. You'll throw up. The happiness on her face. Read his letter and his emails from Friday, digging himself out because he knows. Like I said, I extended the olive branch. Want more? I'm going to gladly apply. To answer your question, I don't even want to look at it. Yes, there's a criminal case. The DA in New Jersey takes forever to work. They can't figure out what's the right charge. God willing, by the end of the week, she will be arrested. Does that answer the question?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
But there are other people in this district.
I just want to apologize for even needing to come up here to defend yourself. That wasn't necessary. Like, I saw the letter today, and it was 3 hours before coming here.
Although my daughter will never be the same.
I am so
and
sorry.
I have two more children with needs that are not coming to this school. Absolutely not. And there's some wonderful teachers in this school.
I know there is.
But it's people like that guy over there that will ruin the district.
I apologize.
As you can see.
From the bottom of my heart, I can't imagine what you.
And my daughter, he wasn't there that day. But he has caused equally, I won't even say his name, but he has caused equally the amount of damage that Jenna Shabika was right down that hallway to my daughter. He just did it again. To her, me, him, everyone in this room. And I hope it's the last time, like she teaches or gets near a child. I hope it's the last time he ever practiced law. Don't forget my face. Don't ever forget it.
to answer Mr. Pollack as well, I just said that I received the letter just a couple hours ago myself.
I also saw it yesterday. I heard that through another parent that you were coming. I was extremely concerned at the reason behind you coming because I wasn't aware that you felt that we were being. I'm afraid. I don't want to say, not sure, I don't want to get in trouble here and say too much, but I went to the court office and asked to see what the correspondence was.
Dr. Miskowitz, were you going to say something?
I want to know how everybody saw. I did not see it.
I didn't have it either.
Because
I heard when we heard I think Dr. Miskowitz, Mark just said we have it for closed session.
It wasn't sent.
It wasn't sent to us.
I heard about it and then.
as did we, and then followed up.
Right.
No, nothing.
Thank you. Okay. All right. We're gonna
You know what this is about? That my daughter did last. Should be his picture on it, or her niece's picture on it. That they had the courtesy of emptying last. How about that?
Ms. Torrici, I just want to say again, thank you for coming and I'm with you and we're going to discuss all of this and thank you for speaking and your family. Seriously, my kids go here, my son graduated from here, my daughter is here now. So I thank you for coming out. Thank you. I agree. I understand.
Picture still.
Understand.
Mr. Malone, is the picture still up?
I'm sorry.
Is there still a picture of her hanging in the room or somewhere in the hallway?
I don't know.
Is there a picture hanging up somewhere in the hallway? Is there something that reminds her, your daughter, of teacher anywhere? Is there something else going on still right now?
The video cuts off there. Again, it's education. It's the entire corrupt education system in a nutshell. This goes on in every single school district all of the time. Covering up sexual assault is something I've written about in almost every single one of my books, dating back almost 10 years ago. Again, this is not new. This is a constant thing. Those parents have a massive lawsuit against the entire school district. They could even sue the lawyer himself. They should also, of course, file complaints against his law license with the Bar Association. For again, the lawyer for the school district coming after the parents as if the parents were to blame for something. Again, criminal charges should be brought against the school teacher. They should have been brought against the guy in the town where I live, who sexually groped a female student and had a history of doing so in the past. And apparently that was the case with this female teacher in New Jersey again, that they had a history of doing this with female students. This is a constant problem. But unfortunately, it boils down to school district lawyers, school district officials not knowing or knowing what's going on and covering it up, one of the two. And then, of course, local prosecutors either not wanting to prosecute or not prosecuting, rather, to the fullest extent of the law. These people are sexual predators. All of the sexual laws that exist on the books against going after minors should be thrown at them immediately. They should be registered sex offenders. They should be removed from the education, quote-unquote, profession. They should have all their licenses taken away, and they should never, they should never be around anybody ever again. Hell, shoot them, for all I care. They're pedophiles. I don't care their sex. Shoot them. But this is the issue. And the part that I continuously find funny and sad at the same time are the number of parents who have no idea that this is going on in the school district where they're sending their children, and yet they're always saying, well, I haven't heard anything. Well, this hasn't made the news. This isn't on social media. I haven't heard anything. Well, of course you haven't. What do you think the pedophile is going to do? Run to the mountaintop and scream it with a bullhorn, or put up a giant billboard in your town and say, I'm the one doing this to your child? They're not going to do that. They keep it under wraps. And the school district keeps it under wraps too. This is par for the course for the American K-12 school system. It just is. There's no way around it. They aren't going to operate in a different way because they've been operating this way for a very long time, probably since their inception. I mean, hell, back when I went to K-12 school as an actual student, they were moving around employees like this all the time. They would move them to a district office. They would move them from school to school. They would never report them to the police for having sex with children or sexually assaulting children, again, regardless of their age or their sex or whatever it was. This is what they do. Image protection is their number one concern. It's not the safety and security of children. It just isn't. It's painting their own children as being the best, in particular when they themselves are school employees. If you have school employees in a school district, in particular the ones that sit on a school board, they'll always say that their children who attend the district, that they always do the best that they can with their kids. And, my kids go here too. And they try to sympathize or empathize by saying, well, I have children that attend here too, and I feel your pain. That has nothing to do with the problem at hand. Having children in the system as an employee means nothing when it comes to that parent having their child molested by a school employee who's been reported before. It's beyond apples and oranges trying to compare the two. They have nothing to do with one another. But again, we're not talking about a rational environment. We're not talking about rational people. We're talking about MK Ultra victims. We're talking about brainwashing and torture. These people believe lies and have believed them their whole life. We, of course, are the fortunate few and the fortunate awake. But they are not. So why in the hell would anybody send their children there ever again? They shouldn't. Bankrupt them. It can happen in an instant. And God, life would be so much better without them around. But at least we're here for the collapse, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Jab-related stuff. Let me read this for you very quickly. You may recall that last week I read to you part of an article that I was asked to review for Sage publication, and I did review it. And again, just to remind everybody, it had to do with Italian professors' perceptions of the whole COVID thing when it came to their workplace satisfaction in relation to sleep disorders, specifically insomnia. And was the pressure of all of that, the whole COVID lie, although in this paper, unfortunately, they think COVID is real, and that there was a pandemic, quote unquote, when of course there was not either of those things. I basically can't do this. What I can't do, and I'm going to read you my suggestion to the author in my review. I basically said, unless you come to grips with the fact that COVID wasn't real, I can't possibly recommend this for publication because you're basing your entire report on something that wasn't real. That's the real research that has to take place. The real question that has to exist is, do you know you've been duped? And they either do or they don't. But that's the question that needs to take place, because it's the duping and the misdirection and manipulation and psychological operation that took place that has caused all of these problems. The workplace dissatisfaction, the sleep disorders, the drug addiction, the suicide, a number of things. That's the reason. So here was my review. Here's what I said. Again, the author got to read this directly. I said, quote, "While I have no doubt that the study accomplishes what it sets out to do, there are major revelations that must take place here that are the basis of the study as a whole. The fact is, there is no COVID, quote unquote, and there was no pandemic, quote unquote. What there was, however, was a scripted fear campaign that was sold to people and professions, and there was an illness or so-called virus, quote unquote, when there was not one. I have no doubt that a fear campaign, as this was, manufactured by national governments across the world, would panic people and cause them to experience conflict within both work and family environments that would lead to health-related issues and job dissatisfaction. That is not new. Fear campaigns and psychological operations accomplish the same kinds of reactions among people, and that's exactly what this was. But the premise of this study is that COVID, quote unquote, and a pandemic, quote unquote, were real, when in fact they were not. The work would accomplish the same thing if you removed the acronym COVID, quote unquote, and word pandemic, quote unquote, and said something like, quote, the response to the COVID, quote unquote, narrative, unquote. And then I said it was the response to a lie that has caused the emotional and professional reaction that occurred across the world, not the existence of an actual illness that predated the rollout of the bioweapon shots called COVID vaccines, quote unquote. The shots are the true illness, as they are a categorized biological weapon. The COVID vaccines, quote unquote, have caused the greatest illness and the collapse of the education profession, and it required the willful participation of those within the profession to believe the lie and then fall for the so-called cure, which has now damaged both the profession and those who work within beyond repair. Until these revelations are made among the author and applied within the manuscript and examined within the study, I do not recommend this for publication, because lowering the standards of higher education lower than they already are and relying on government will not be any type of solution to the problem that government and these institutions of higher education, business, and commerce themselves created in the first place, unquote. So again, their conclusion, of course, in their study, which I read in a previous episode, was that more government, more meetings, and more communication are the way to solve all of this. And lowering the standards, of course, of what professors at the university level are asked to do in order to attain tenure. That's not the solution. The solution is you have to stop being brainwashed. And I'm not going to support any study that, again, is built on the basis of something that's not real. So that will basically be my response to any article I receive in the future, if I do receive any opportunity, I suppose, if you want to even call it that, to review a manuscript before publication potentially. But yeah, either way, it's a bit embarrassing. Speaking of embarrassing, check this out. This was cool and good for our Michigan business leader, who remains anonymous for a variety of reasons. One in particular, of course, which is the largest reason, which is back when Donald Trump was running for president either the first or second time. They, of course, as I've told her story before, and she's a female. I've met this woman, wonderful lady, my age actually, and she was doxxed. She was completely doxxed and almost lost her business as a result of making a donation to Donald Trump. Google came after her. Local inspectors came after her. A number of individuals came after her. So this is why she remains anonymous on Substack, and she goes by Agent 131711. And again, their Substack page is chemtrails.substack.com. They wrote a Substack on April 17th titled, Dr. Lee Merritt is lying about me. Vitamin D is rat poison. It's hazardous. Let me show you again. This was an awesome article that she wrote. And yeah, Dr. Lee Merritt, that Lee Merritt, actually got on her own podcast, her video podcast, and attacked our Michigan business owner friend over their show, trying to basically say that her entire investigation on supplements being poison is idiocy, quote unquote, and I'm using her words. And the fact is, it just isn't. So here's what I'm going to do just for the sake of brevity. I'm going to link her Substack article in the description below. She includes the video where Lee Merritt is criticizing her and another individual who I've referenced, which is DLP on Substack, also came to Agent 131711's defense against Lee Merritt, which is great. And he basically said, look, if you have 3 brain cells, you can read and connect what's going on here, because this individual has clearly, our Michigan business friend, has clearly connected all the correct dots here. And again, yes, supplements are dangerous. And if taken in mass with regularity, they are dangerous. You should try to avoid supplementation as a regular habit. If it of course can be done. If your diet is sound, if you're getting sunlight, if you're outside, if you're doing the normal things like exercising and again eating the proper food and drinking clean water, then there's no need for supplementation. But if you want some supplementation again for a short period of time while potentially being ill, then yes, of course, go for it. Again, supplementation is used when fighting off cancer, and rightfully so. But at the exact same time, you have to be careful about where you're obtaining your supplementation, the kinds of supplements you're using, and again, the frequency in which it's being used. And she connects the dots very perfectly. And again, it's a remarkably thorough article, and she goes through it yet again in this particular article. So I'll link it in the description below if you're interested. And definitely certainly give the video a watch that she has at the very beginning with Lee Merritt criticizing her and then DLP coming to her defense. And Lee Merritt basically stepping out of bounds here. She should be careful with the word idiocy. In fact, I'm pretty much done with the 5 docs. I think that they've the expiration date, I'll say, has pretty much passed. They're beyond repetitive, and now they're getting to the point where they're criticizing individuals who are doing thorough investigations, and ironically, individuals like our Michigan business friend here, who again operates the chemtrails.substack.com page and does all of this writing and this investigation. What the likes of Dr. Merritt are doing is they're criticizing individuals who are really criticizing Dr. Lee Merritt's cash cow, and one of them, which of course is the supplement game. I mean, that has to be taken into consideration too. Lee Merritt pushes a lot of supplements. I know over the years a lot of people have pushed supplements, myself included. I mean, I used to promote, not for any money, because I never get kickbacks from these people, but I used to promote life extension. And then I watched Amazing Polly do a presentation on life extension, and I went, holy shit, I'm not going to promote them anymore. Again, if you want to go and you want to get supplements from a group, I think what Agent here is saying, and our Michigan business friend is clearly saying, is that you better be real careful about where you get them from and how much you're using and things of that nature. Again, I've pretty much stayed away from supplements for the most part myself in my own life. I take black seed oil every now and again I haven't been sick in 11 years, minus that coughing spell. But other than that, yeah, everything's a-okay. So it's excellent. But again, this is part of the war. Part of the war is that some of us have time to investigate a little bit more on particular issues, and just because we do so, and just because chemtrails.substack.com has a rather large audience and many subscribers, and that message gets out there, it doesn't mean she's wrong. It could mean that Dr. Lee Merritt is wrong, and that maybe Lee Merritt missed something and didn't think about something a particular way, or didn't do a deep enough dive on a particular subject. Again, this is an honest woman here. I've met her. I can vouch for her. She's hardworking, remarkably thorough in her posts, and she posts a great deal of information on Substack. So, yeah, definitely check it out. In fact, there's another one that she posted on her Substack about unincorporated property in America. And wouldn't you know it, many of the so-called mass shootings and fake shootings actually happen on unincorporated property. So I've kind of been over that in the past, but she wrote a whole Substack about it. So definitely bounce over to chemtrails.substack.com and check that out. And again, I'll link it in the description below just so you can watch Lee Merritt try to discredit her, because it doesn't work. Again, the article speaks for itself. It's pretty crystal clear. You read enough warning labels that says danger, and then all the highlighted chemicals that are actually in this, and how it just also happens to be in rat poison. Well, yeah. No doubt about it. In fact, let me read this just very quickly. Our Michigan business friend put this in her Substack, the one that I'll link below. And she said, she wrote this. She said, quote, "I've never told people to not take any supplement. In fact, in every single one of my vitamin investigations, I have said repeatedly, quote, if it is helping you, great, take it." So you're right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, they said that is an easily debunked claim that exists for no reason other than to make me look like I have an agenda. Unquote. And again, Dr. Merritt refers to her as a he, of course, and says, this person's anonymous and we don't know who they are, and maybe they're just disinformation and blah blah blah. No, I've had drinks with this person. They're a real human being. They're a business owner, and they're a good person. They're a family person, and they're one hell of an investigator. So just because somebody's a little better at a particular subject than you are, it doesn't mean you have to shit all over them. Just let it go. And hell, maybe you just read the article, because based on Lee Merritt's description here, it almost sounds like she didn't even read it. So there you go. Again, this is what happens with the defensive supplement pushers. You call some of these people out, or you at the very least just you just shine a light on them, and they panic. They run like cockroaches when the lights come on. It's ridiculous, but there you go. Okay, like I said, I'll link that in the description below. You got to check out the video itself. It really is. It's short, but it's very telling. In fact, in that same vein, I'm going to end with this. This has to do with sort of the fear porn that even the wellness company continues to push. Because again, they're profiting from selling overpriced supplements, and they're profiting from selling overpriced ivermectin and a bunch of other things. Because again, they're interested in making money. And they're interested in making money on stirring up the fear campaign yet again. But there was this particular article that is titled, this is from newsaddicts.com, appropriate name, I'm afraid. But it was titled, Government Planning Vaccine Mandates for Dangerous Human Bird Flu Pandemic. And this was on April 13th. It says the government is preparing vaccine mandates for humans to tackle bird flu as top health official warns that the H5N1 avian influenza virus will be a full-blown pandemic before the fall. Bullshit. So with that said, here's where the wellness company comes in, the so-called wellness company. And of course, who pushes the wellness company and who pushes all the wellness company people? You guessed it, the Gateway Pundit. Here's the Gateway Pundit with an article that is titled, and it's more of just kind of a general headline, but Chief Medical Board of the Wellness Company adds Tamiflu to contagion kit to combat bird flu. You see the problem here with the wellness company and the people who associate? It's the same thing. They're perpetuating the virus lie. They're perpetuating, you need to buy our product or else lie. And all that fear nonsense. They're a part of this psychological operation too, and trying to profit from it. Again, it's no different than the people who were taking over the large church organizations and those massive, stages and doing the Reawaken America tour and all that stuff. They're feeding off of the fear by providing what they believe to be the so-called solution and then profiting from it on their way out the door. Here's what it says. It says, quote, the Chief Medical Board of the Wellness Company has been closely watching the avian flu H5N1 outbreak here in the United States over the last few weeks. While it's far from certain that this most recent strand of bird flu will result in a pandemic, Dr. Peter McCullough and his colleagues on the Chief Medical Board voted to add Tamiflu to the contagion kit out of an abundance of caution. Again, McCullough said, quote, out of an abundance of caution, we are adding Tamiflu to the contagion kit. Tamiflu is a safe medication approved to treat influenza type A viruses like avian flu. We will continue to closely monitor this situation and make further recommendations as warranted. There's no such thing as the flu, Dr. McCullough. I hate to break it to you, but it doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is poison that people put in their own body, and then poison that people put in food. That's it. There's no virus. Ducks aren't walking around coughing on each other. They aren't walking around coughing on humans. A chicken isn't sneezing on somebody. A bird flying over your head isn't going to land on your shoulder, barf in your ear, and then all of a sudden you're going to get sick. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. People are eating bad food, they're believing lies, and the fear that's being stoked and the money that they're spending to allegedly solve the fear problem, that's the real pandemic here. Continues to be. So I've got a few more stories for Wednesday, as you would expect. More of that coming up. I will also link in the description one more thing, which is my most recent Substack on the sexually transmitted nature of the COVID bioweapon shots. I highly recommend you check that out. I just do some very basic dot connecting with media headlines and the contradictions within the media itself, and how there's no doubt, in my professional opinion, not a medical doctor, but don't have to be, that the COVID bioweapon shots are sexually transmitted. I don't think there's any doubt. You can't have those shots impact breast milk, blood, numerous fluids in the body, including reproductive organs of both men and women, and have it not be in vaginal and seminal fluid. It has to be. In fact, it was studied back in 2004 among mice. In 2004, mRNA was being played with among mice, and they found it in the semen of mice and in the reproductive fluids among mice. So that's a thing. That's real. Give that Substack a look if you're interested. Move it around if you're interested. And thanks for listening as always, ladies and gentlemen. I will catch you on Wednesday. Peace.
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.